Coming up on Talking Points, the deadliest school shooting since the start of the pandemic happened last week at a suburban Detroit high school. The suspect's parents are now in custody. We'll give you the latest in this story soon.
And the Supreme Court hears a law that may change abortion policies in the United States. Find out how activists on both sides of the debate are responding.
Plus, celebrity Dr. Mehmet Oz is joining the Pennsylvania Senate race. We will break down whether Dr. Oz could be the next celebrity to run a successful political campaign. Talking Point starts now.
Welcome to the final 2021 episode of Talking Points. I'm Teagan Brown.
And I'm Moriah. Humiston. We start tonight with some major news from today. The Biden administration announced that diplomats from the United States will not attend the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. The U.S. is protesting China's treatment of the Uyghurs in Western China and, quote, other human rights abuses. This move comes on the heels of the Women's Tennis Association canceling all competitions in China over the treatment of Peng Shuai. So, Teagan, let's start with the details that the White House released today about this partial boycott.
Absolutely. So, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki announced today that the United States would not be sending any representatives to the Beijing Olympics. Now, this would not be happening. However, she did say that athletes are still able to go, that they will not be stopping them at all from doing that. Now, going back a little bit to last month, Biden said that this could potentially happen due to the genocide of the minority of Muslims that was taking place. There was even a video conference between Biden and China's leader to try to fix these tensions.
Absolutely. And what we will be seeing is that athletes will still be allowed to compete in the Olympic Games in 2022.
A shooting at a Michigan high school killed 4 and injured 7 more. The alleged shooter is behind bars as well as his parents. There's a lot to unpack with this tragic incident, and Talking Points analyst Jacob Goldberg is here to break it all down. Jacob?
Thanks, guys. The sound of police sirens echoed across Oxford High School in Michigan last week. 4 students were killed while 7 others, including a teacher, were wounded. The tragedy was the deadliest school shooting since 8 were killed in Santa Fe in May of 2018. The shooting also marks the 48th in schools in the year 2021. The shooting allegedly started after 15-year-old Ethan Crumbley opened up fire in the school. Police quickly arrived at the scene and had Crumbley apprehended in just 3 minutes. Law enforcement was able to safely arrest Crumbley and take away his weapon to prevent further violence. Ethan Crumbley used a semi-automatic pistol to open fire. The gun was purchased by his father, James Crumbley, just 4 days earlier on Black Friday. Ethan was charged as an adult and may be convicted for adult terrorism, murder, and other counts. Now, what's unique about this case compared to previous school shootings is that law enforcement is charging Ethan's parents. The Crumbley parents were charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter over the shooting, and after not following their scheduled arraignment in court that was scheduled for Friday afternoon, law enforcement went on a manhunt for the Crumbley parents. Their attorney claims that the Crumbleys fully intended to turn themselves in first thing in the morning for arraignment. However, police believe that the Crumbleys were looking to stay there for a long period of time. Detroit Police Chief James White said this.
As I indicated, they were in a commercial building, in a room. We were able to take them into custody without incident, but however, they were very distressed as they were walking out.
Time will tell whether the Crumbley parents will be convicted, but it certainly makes for a unique case. Moriah, back to you.
Thanks, Jacob. The Supreme Court is deciding whether or not the 2018 Mississippi abortion law is constitutional. They are also deciding whether or not to uphold the decision made in Roe v. Wade. In 1970, Roe v. Wade granted both privacy rights and abortion rights until the end of the 2nd trimester. In the Planned Parenthood v. Casey case, the court dismissed the trimester structure of Roe, moving instead to a fetal viability standard around 24 weeks. Spencer Kweskin joins us now to explain the new challenges in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization.
Stewart, representing Mississippi, elaborated the state's case.
When does a woman's interests enter? As far as we're concerned, it's there the entire time. Our point is that all of the interests are there the entire time, and Roe and Casey improperly prevent states from taking account and weighing those interests however they think best.
Julie Rickelman, representing the abortion clinic, stated,
"The court has interpreted liberty to include the right to make family decisions and the right to physical autonomy, including the right to end a pre-viability pregnancy."
The justices focused on whether they should overrule Roe v. Wade. Describing Roe v. Wade as a watershed case, Justice Breyer stated,
"To overrule under fire in the absence of the most compelling reason to re-examine a watershed decision would subvert the court's legitimacy beyond any serious question."
Justice Sotomayor agreed, warning,
"If people actually believe that it's all political, how will we survive? How will the court survive?"
But Justice Kavanaugh disagreed, stating,
"Why then doesn't the history of this court's practice with respect to those cases tell us that the right answer is actually the return to the position of neutrality?"
The justices also probed at the viability standard in Roe and Casey, with Justice Alito stating,
"The line really doesn't make any sense, that it is, as Justice Blackmun himself described it, arbitrary."
However, Sotomayor seemed to disagree.
What hasn't been at issue in the last 30 years is the line that Casey drew of viability.
Talking Points analyst Spencer Kweskin joins us now. So Spencer, what are the possible outcomes for this case?
Yeah, so with the composition of this court, there are really three possible outcomes for the case. The first is that Roe v. Wade and the viability standard are upheld. This would be very similar to the Casey decision. In that case, there were 8 justices who were conservative justices and 7 justices who directly opposed Roe v. Wade. However, despite that, the court upheld Roe v. Wade. So this coalition would look very similar. It would be the liberal justices, it would be Roberts and maybe Kavanaugh, who has talked at length about precedent, or maybe Amy Coney Barrett, who is sort of a wild card in this case. The second option is what Roberts described during the hearing, and that is moving the viability line somewhere else. Now, Amy Coney Barrett referenced moving the line up to maybe the second trimester, but it could also be moved down to maybe the first trimester or to Mississippi's 15 weeks. If it's moved down, then we're going to look at challenges at 10 weeks, at 8 weeks, at 6 weeks even, and there'll be a lot of challenges. The third possibility is that the court overturns Roe v. Wade effectively. And the way they would do this is similar to how they did it in Brown v. Board of Education, where in this case, they would say viability is a nice standard and all, and it's a good idea in theory, but in practice, the federal government either cannot or should not be setting the line, and therefore the court cannot make a decision on this, the federal government can't do this, and so the issue is kicked back to the states.
All right, Spencer Kweskin, thank you so much. On Thursday, President Biden released his plan to combat COVID-19 and its variants over the winter months. His plan includes free at-home testing and new travel restrictions for international travelers. Talking Points analyst Tyler O'Neill is in studio to tell us what this means for travel. So Tyler, the holidays are right around the corner. How are people still going to be able to travel internationally this holiday season?
Right, so travel still will be a thing this season. However, the changes are now with the Omicron variant spreading across the world. We are going to have testing for international travelers get tested one day before their departure as opposed to the original 3. So that change is going to make it harder for people to travel if they test positive. They may get stuck in a country where they're not familiar with or a place they not want to be and they can't get home for the holidays, or vice versa, they're stuck somewhere after the holidays. So it's going to make travel a little more hectic for people, and they're going to be a little more concerned as to the uncertainty of what's going to happen.
And so what we're seeing right now is that President Biden is implementing new policies to limit the spread of the new Omicron variant. What are we going to see next for Biden and his medical team?
Right, so last week on Thursday, Biden announced that he was going to make private insurance companies reimburse their 150 million customers for their at-home, over-the-counter COVID tests. So that's now going to allow people to be tested at home and at free of cost.
And so normally what we see around this time of year is the United States economy boost from all of the travel nationally or internationally. Is this going to impact that at all this year?
Right, so this year a travel agent said that because of all this travel testing that they've already experienced, travelers are used to this, then now the change is the uncertainty. And it's going to leave people questioning whether or not they want to travel as much or at all, because they don't want to risk getting stuck somewhere. So now the restrictions aren't the problem, they're used to the testing, it's the new uncertainty of the Omicron variant.
And so Tyler, we'll have to see as we approach closer to the holidays how this will impact travel and the economy. Thank you so much. Coming up after the break, Dr. Oz is joining the crowded 2022 Pennsylvania Senate race. We'll have more on his platform and the race at large. Stay with us.
Did you hear about the pony with a sore throat? He was a little horse. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why couldn't the Why was the basketball court all wet? Why? Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Where did cats go on vacation? New York.
Welcome back to Talking Points. Dr. Mehmet Oz is joining the race for Senate in Pennsylvania as a Republican. Incumbent Senator Pat Toomey is retiring and Oz joins a crowded field. Joining us now with more is Talking Points analyst Chilekasi Adele. Now, Chile, what is Oz looking to bring to the table with his candidacy and what is he running on?
So Oz is calling himself a, quote, conservative Republican. Last week he penned an op-ed in the Washington Examiner, a conservative publication. He attacked federal COVID policy and he says that the government mandates caused unnecessary suffering. Now, we have a clip of what he released in his campaign speech. Take a look.
But COVID has shown us that our system is broken. We lost too many lives, too many jobs, and too many opportunities because Washington got it wrong. They took away our freedom without making us safer and tried to kill our spirit and our dignity.
So you hear him say there, Washington got it wrong. He didn't mention Democrats, he didn't mention Republicans. As a matter of fact, in his campaign ad and his op-ed, the only time he mentions a politician is in reference to Donald Trump, in which he lauded him for Operation Warp Speed. Of course, that was the former president's vaccine program to help get the vaccines out in the midst of the pandemic. He also says he'll tell it like it is, so it is more of a trying to be direct in terms of how he's trying to go about his campaign, something a little bit asked to Chris Christie.
Now, Dr. Oz is a surgeon, and he's arguably most well-known by his TV show. So what is the future of this show?
Well, it's really interesting because in the midst, like literally right after he announced his campaign, there are stations all across Pennsylvania that took down his show, that yanked it off the air. The Fox station in Philadelphia, the NBC station in Harrisburg as well. This is due to the FCC's rules on equal time, meaning you got to give equal coverage to both candidates. And most of the candidates running, all other candidates don't have television shows like Dr. Oz shows. You can see the Pennsylvania TV markets. You see Philadelphia down there, and of course there's Harrisburg. But here's where it gets interesting. There are other markets from other states that bleed into Pennsylvania. You see Pike County near Scranton. That's part of the New York TV market. Around Buffalo, Elmira. There's also New York markets that bleed into Pennsylvania, and out towards the west you can see as well that there's markets from Ohio that bleed into Pennsylvania as well. The Fox station in Cleveland and the Fox station in New York also yanking off Oz's show as well.
Chilekasi, you know, there have been a lot of notable faces throwing in their hats into this race, again left vacant by Pat Toomey. What can you tell us about the background of some of these candidates?
Yeah, so there are a bunch of Republicans and Democrats that have thrown their hat into the ring here. Jeff Bartos, he's a Republican from Montgomery County, just outside of Philadelphia, a longtime GOP fundraiser. He was the most high-profile candidate before Dr. Oz, who you see there at the top of your screen. You also have Sean Parnell, who suspended his campaign, but he was the candidate who was backed early by Donald Trump. He lost custody of his kids in a custody battle a couple of weeks ago, and as a result, he suspended his campaign. Sean Gale is the brother of Joe Gale, and Gale, is running for governor in Pennsylvania in 2022. So both of them running for statewide offices in the state of Pennsylvania. Of course, on the Democratic side, you got John Fetterman, who's the current lieutenant governor under Governor Tom Wolf. Connor Lamb as well, former Western PA Congressman Malcolm Kenyatta from Philadelphia, and Val Arkush, who's another Montgomery County Commissioner.
Chilekasi Adele, thank you so much. Former member of the Georgia House of Representatives Stacy Abrams announced her 2022 campaign for Georgia governor against incumbent Republican Governor Brian Kemp. After running against Kemp in 2018, she's ready to run again. But does she have a chance to win? Here to tell us more is Talking Points analyst Julianna Distante. Julianna? Now, Stacy Abrams ran for Georgia governor in 2018 but lost. What is different about it this time around? Thanks, Teagan. Now, when taking a look at Stacy Abrams and her running of this coming campaign, when she lost in 2018 in her previous campaign to now Republican Governor Brian Kemp, there was concern about that she stated when she had lost about whether or not Kemp impeded voters in Georgia from coming to the polls. Now she later then proceeded to concede and is now working towards furthering her efforts towards voting. And this is something that she's always preached on her platform as being a Democrat. She's written a book about voting rights and is something that she preaches quite often. Now we have a quote. My responsibility as a Georgia citizen has been to try to make every single person in our state who is eligible to vote can do so. And that's the work that I've done for the last decade and a half, building capacity in our party. This is a large platform that she plans to run her campaign on. And she also said, when asked about her partnership with Democratic senators in Georgia, Senator Ossoff as well as Senator Warnock, this is something that we want to take a look at. She said, my mission is to spend this campaign talking to those voters using the infrastructure we built, adding more to it, and working with, yes, our Senators Ossoff and Warnock, especially Senator Warnock as he runs for re-election. So her campaigning is going to be very important for Democrats that want to keep a hold of Georgia.
Now, Juliana, are we beginning to see a shift in the political climate in Georgia?
That's a great question, Teagan. Now, when we take a look at how the candidates for the gubernatorial race in Georgia for 2022, we see Stacy Abrams, of course, taking the Democratic vote, as well as incumbent Republican Brian Kemp, as well as announced earlier today, former Georgia Senator David Perdue, as he plans to run for governor. And this is going to be something extremely important to consider as we take a look at former President Trump and his affiliation with David Perdue as he furthered the ideas of invalidating the 2020 election along with former President Trump and his closest allies. So taking a look at these candidates and where they end up is going to be extremely interesting and make for a very competitive primary.
Juliana, thank you so much. Coming up on Talking Points, the Omicron variant of COVID-19 continues to spread across the continent of Europe. We'll have more after the break on what some European leaders are doing to limit the spread of this new, highly contagious variant.
They test you. Stand firm and move only when you hear the seatbelt click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
I already knew that I was going to go to college, from a young age. I definitely want to major in political science, become the mayor or something, make the situation better for other people. My name is Justin, and I am your dividend.
Looking for these? You drive buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
They said I have troll teeth.
That my voice sounded like a possessed baby doll.
That no one would ever love someone as stupid as me.
That I was fat, ugly.
Disgusting.
The effect of bullying is potent.
We will no longer be the silent majority.
Now, when you see online bullying, there's something you can do about it.
We're gonna take action with the I.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness, and so are you.
Welcome back to Talking Points. The Omicron variant has spread across Europe, and European countries are beginning to re-strengthen their COVID regulations. Talking Points analyst Jake Morel is here to tell us about some imminent lockdowns. So Jake, what kind of increase in COVID are we seeing to prompt these changes in Europe?
So cases are rising at a record rate across the entire continent, as well as deaths and hospitalizations. In Austria, cases have reached 1,100 per 100,000 people, which is 8 times as many cases they had just 2 months ago earlier this fall. Other countries such as Greece, the Netherlands, Germany, and Italy are also seeing spikes in cases. Not as dramatic as Austria, but still seeing spikes even before Omicron hit their shores. The EU overall is at 400 cases per 100,000 people, and they were in October at under 100 cases. So we are just seeing a massive COVID spike throughout the entire continent of Europe right now.
So you mentioned we're seeing some dramatic changes and some not so dramatic changes, but what have we been seeing in response to this case spike?
So several countries have immediately gone into lockdowns. Austria, as I mentioned earlier, they're struggling with COVID the worst that they have struggled with COVID. So they're completely locked down. Other countries such as France, Poland, Switzerland, and Spain have also increased their restrictions. And almost every European country has increased travel restrictions on Africa after the Omicron variant was found in Africa. But one important thing to remember about these lockdowns is that many of these restrictions were put in place before Omicron, and not only because of Omicron. Europe has been seeing a big case spike that several scientists are calling a fourth wave of COVID. So that, coupled with Omicron, is prompting a lot of these new regulations.
And Jake, we'll have to see where these regulations go with Omicron and any other variants we'll get in the future. Thank you so much. The Biden administration reached a deal with the Mexican government to reinstate a Trump-era Remain in Mexico immigration policy. These series of laws force migrants to stay in Mexico until their immigration case has been reviewed here in the United States. Joining us to explain the policy is Talking Points analyst Dominic Chiappone. Dominic?
Thanks, Moriah. President Biden is reinstating and expanding a controversial immigration policy created under the Trump administration. The Migration Protection Protocol, or more commonly known as the Remain in Mexico policy, forces migrants to await their immigration cases in Mexico instead of right here in the United States. Lower court rulings from states such as Texas and Missouri all but forced the Biden administration to reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy. As of now, the Supreme Court is not planning to overturn the lower court rulings. Under the Trump administration, over 70,000 migrants seeking entry into the U.S. were sent back to Mexico. Many of these migrants are forced to live in overcrowded shelters and have often been targeted by criminal gangs. Now, the Biden administration has come out and stated their lack of support for the Remain in Mexico policy. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says that the policy undermines the Biden administration's ability to fundamentally change immigration laws in the U.S. Mayorkas also says that it fails to protect migrants seeking refuge to the United States. And back in April, Biden said that immigration reform was crucial to rebuilding the United States. Here's what he had to say.
We can do. Immigration has always been essential to America. Let's end our exhausting war over immigration. For more than 30 years, politicians have talked about immigration reform, and we've done nothing about it. It's time to fix it.
Now, currently, Congress has failed to pass any meaningful legislation when it comes to immigration reform. Additionally, the Biden administration actually expanded the policy. As of now, any migrant coming from the Western Hemisphere must now adhere to this rule. However, the Biden administration has not thrown the towel yet when it comes to fixing America's current immigration system. Time and time again, President Biden has called on Congress to get the job done and help immigrants better assimilate into the United States. Take a listen.
Immigrants have done so much for America during this pandemic and throughout our history. The country supports immigration reform. We should act. Let's argue over it. Let's debate it. But let's act.
Now, Dominic, you mentioned that this policy does have its flaws. What and who has criticized the Biden administration for this decision?
Yeah, so the simple answer is everybody almost is criticizing this administration. Those on the right are basically saying the status quo simply does not do enough to protect the current border situation. Many on the right are calling this a border crisis. We need to secure the border, tamper down on migrants coming into the United States. And those on the left are saying the opposite. I mean, during the campaign, President Biden said we're going to reform immigration, rely heavily upon, allowing migrants to better have access into the United States. And honestly, with this Trump-era policy, they're basically going backwards currently right now under the status quo.
All right, Dominic Chiappone, thank you so much. Coming up on Talking Points, former Kansas Senator and presidential candidate Bob Dole passed away yesterday. We will discuss his legacy and talk about his accomplishments over the years. Stay with us.
3 adults has pre-diabetes. That means it could be you, your favorite brother, your other brother, you, your football buddy, your football buddy, you, your plumber,
Breathe right into your foot.
your plumber's masseuse,
Yes.
you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. With early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
OTN is on all your favorite apps: Apple TV, Fire TV, and Roku. Search Orange Television Network or OTN. OTN has its best shows, short films, and CitrusTV on demand. Family and friends can watch OTN too. Watch the live stream of OTN to catch live CitrusTV news, live from Studio B, and mornings on the Hill. On or off campus, watch OTN anywhere.
Welcome back to Talking Points. Former Senate Majority Leader Bob Dole passed away at a hospital in Kansas yesterday. Born in 1923, Dole shaped Republican politics in America over the past century. He served his community on the local level in Kansas before becoming a U.S. congressman, and later would have a successful career in the U.S. Senate. He was 98 years old. So, Teagan and Chilekasi, let's start by talking about Bob Dole's early career.
Absolutely. So in his early career, first of all, he served in World War II. He was severely injured in doing so, but later on, once he got back to the United States, he spent 27 years as a senator from Kansas and became the Senate Majority Leader twice. And now, Chilekasi, let's talk a little bit more, further about what he's done after that.
Yeah, so some of the things that Senator Dole did during his time in Congress, a lot of them have to do with things like national parks and whatnot, but he's also been recognized for what he did for people who need accessibility in terms of their lives. He helped create accessible government offices. In addition to that, sidewalk ramps as well, and even sign language interpreters in local events, political events and whatnot. So being remembered tonight and yesterday as a big part of improving accessibility. But what's also important to mention is during his time in Congress, he was also seen as somebody who could work with both sides of the aisle, Moriah.
Absolutely, Chilekasi, and this is a big story and one of many that we've covered this year with Talking Points. Teagan, we'll start with you. What do you think is the biggest story we covered this semester?
Well, mine isn't exactly a story. I'd like to give a shout out to our election special. That was a big event. We spent all night looking at local elections, more national ones, and that was something that was really great, in my opinion, of what we got to do here. How about you, Moriah?
Absolutely, and looking on that local level, I think something big that we covered and something that we're going to see right in the beginning of 2022 is the reconstruction of Interstate 81 and Biden's infrastructure bill. We're going to see right down in west and southern Syracuse how that's going to be impacted. Chile?
And one of the big things that we've been talking about this semester and even dating back to last semester is everything that's happened in Albany with Governor Cuomo, and that extending to CNN's Chris Cuomo now, who was fired Saturday by the network. That one big story in Albany is, I think, one of the most important ones we've covered all semester.
Chilekasi, thank you so much. That's all the time we have for you on this episode of Talking Points and for the semester. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CitrusTV News and like us on Facebook. I'm Moriah Humiston.
And I'm Teagan Brown. Have a great night and break, Syracuse. Happy holidays.